My name is Harry, and I was born and brought up in India, and I stayed in India till the age of 30, and then subsequent to that, I moved away from India, moved on to the Middle East, stayed there for almost about 17 years, and then after in the year 2001, I moved to New Zealand and stayed there for almost 17 years before I moved into Australia. So that's in terms of the places where I had stayed. Um, I had my education, everything was in India. I'm qualified as a biochemist actually in my profession. And I was doing my doctorate for initially, and then I stopped doing my doctorate because I thought I'm not fit enough to spend in the white coat in the lab for 5 years to get my doctorate degree. So I stopped doing my doctorate and then moved into doing my business management because I thought that I'm quite good in sales and marketing, and then I thought I would that would make a good career with my biochemistry as the base subject. So I thought that I could use those knowledge of science in the pharmaceutical business or any other skincare business, etc. So that was on the educational part of it. Yeah, I was. I'm called as a Christmas baby because I was born on the 25th of December. So it was like always double celebrations at my house. Celebrating Christmas and celebrating my birthday. Even though we are born as Hindus, we believed in all the religions basically. That was my thought initially, and so we did celebrate Christmas, and I had a lot of other friends celebrating Christmas. So my birthday was a double bonanza. Yeah, I grew up in India. I was born and brought up in Bombay. Bombay is one of the most big commercial cities in India, and I'm born in a middle class family. We were quite not very very affluent, but I had three siblings. I got my elder brother, and elder sister, and an younger sister. We are four of us, and we grew up quite. I mean, it was a quite tough life in those days. I'm talking about 1960s, and the obviously at that point of time, for a small amount of money, you could get a large amount of things. And I never saw my parents struggling to make both ends meet or not, but we were all very happy, and I could only think about the kind of a lovely life we had as a family. So that was what the growing up in the initial stages of life. Oh no, it's good. I'm just trying to recollect. There's something which is quite unique, and I like the concept and the idea that this kind of filming or this kind of a story or this kind of a story captured in a CD or in any kind of a medium, it's going to live long. I mean, it could be an asset to my especially my granddaughters and my grandsons, who would have no other way otherwise to know, because I wouldn't think that my own daughters would be able to explain so much as I myself would be able to tell about my life and what I believed in my life, and what is it that they need to be following for their own good. I mean, purely this is, I may not be right in all the sense what I'm talking, because the generations keep changing. There's a new technology coming in. There's a new thoughts coming in. So it is not necessarily that my whatever I'm speaking or whatever I'm trying to preach or tell or advise may not necessarily be the perfect one or the correct one for that time being or for the current time being. But I'm sure that will have some kind of a positive gist in that, which they could take it, or in other words, they could take it whichever is good, and they could throw away whichever is bad and which is not applicable to the current generation or the current world, because the world is changing, the world is dynamic. So I think this is a brilliant concept, and which would go a long way in preserving the family values, the traditional values, and it's some kind of the Bible for the whole family. I mean, that's what I would call it. The favorite book I always loved reading this, I must have read many times, is The Power of Subconscious Mind. It's written by a doctor, Dr. Daniel Murphy, and I don't know whether I'm sure many people must have heard about this book because this particular book or this particular doctor talks about your subconscious mind, and what the book says is that your subconscious mind is so strong, so powerful that if you believe in that, you would be the most successful person in the world. Because what happens is that if you go back to the my ideology, or I mean basically what we all believe as the Hindus, or the culture is basically the whole body is, we've got a soul inside our body, and the soul never dies, and the soul is so powerful that if you believe that you can do a certain thing, you definitely can do a certain thing. That's the power of the subconscious mind. If you think that you can win the race, you go there and run, and you're going to win the race. Because you tell your subconscious mind that you're going to win, you're going to be successful, you're going to be a great man, and you will do it. And I can remember one of the classic examples of the book, what the doctor says is that, there were a lot of people who are, sitting in the wheelchair, and they couldn't, they never believed that they could run. And then he was telling them that you could run. And this one day, this guy started running, getting out of the wheelchair. That's what, he was preaching, that basically the book says that, your mind is so powerful, or your soul is so powerful, that you preach, or you tell the soul, or you believe in that what you can do, and you can do it. And that's why I love the book. I keep reading that book, to give me own confidence, and telling people that, you can do whatever you believe you can do, you will do it. That's a tough question, because it's crazy. When I was in the schools and colleges, in college I used to bunk and go to the movies almost every week with my friends, and bunk classes. But in the last 20 years I just lost interest in seeing movies. So if you ask me this question, which is my favorite movie, to be honest with you, I can't think of anything very specific or any. I used to enjoy movies, but not necessarily I have got any favorite, to be honest. Maybe it's very absurd to tell that I don't have any favorite movies, but yeah, we have seen a lot of movies in in the Hindi industry. The one movie that really strikes me, which I really loved, was a movie called Anand. It's the whole story is about two friends. Of the two friends, one of them is a doctor, and the other guy is his own classmate or some kind of a friend. And the doctor knows that the guy is suffering from cancer and he's going to die in 6 months' time. And the whole movie is, and the guy who's got cancer, he also knows that he's going to die. And then within that 6 months, his whole concept was to make everybody happy. And the doctor did not know that this guy knows that he's going to die. That was the whole movie, and the whole concept of how when a person knows that he's going to die, and how he then transforms the world and tells the people that you got to love each other, the whole friendship, and then you got to take it easy because you just can't escape death. So that's quite etched in my mind. It's basically like you need to make others happy. You need to you shouldn't hurt other people. So you should do everything what will help others to grow. Those kind of things. So this movie came out with a very good message. So that's quite that's still etched in my mind. So probably that could be one of my favorite movies. This is. I was when we were growing up, the medium of language was Hindi in India. So we are all used to the Hindi movies, Hindi language, Hindi. That's what we used to see. But the songs which I used to enjoy was Beatles in those times. to be honest, and whenever I used to feel bored or whenever I used to feel lazy, I used to play all the Beatles songs, and I used to get pepped up. This is something which was I really enjoyed, listening to the Beatles. So even now, when I play Beatles song at home, my kids, I mean, like, they've never heard, because they're all the new generations. They'll say, "What, Dad? What the hell are you singing? Which is this song?" When they would never understand. Beatles was one of the best, group during the 1960s, and I still enjoy listening to Beatles. The concept or the quote is that it's very simple. The same thing in everybody speaks in the Indian language is that what you sow, you reap. And I believe in that, because we all believe in karma theory, and we have been always taught, you're always supposed to do good, so that is the kind of concept, so what you do is what you get it in return back. Like, if you're nice to somebody, everybody is going to be nice to you. If you're doing something good, automatically the good things will come to you. So that's the pure concept which I always believed in. It's a very abstract question now. uh, Interestingly, I was always in the perfume business. I used to develop perfumes, fragrances. And that's what I did when I went to the Middle East. I built up a factory to manufacture perfumes, cosmetics, and toiletries. So there was a time that, I used to smell fragrances every day, because we used to develop fragrances. We used to make imitation fragrances. We used to make Arabic fragrances. It's quite tough to make Arabic fragrances. So it's basically, if you ask me what is the fragrance what you like, I like I like those fragrances which has got a spicy note, which has got a spicy note in the base, and sort of a flowery and a flowery note on the top thing. Like in a fragrance, there are three steps. You got a top note, middle note, and the bottom note. So I wanted the base note or the bottom note to be very spicy, aldehyde, and whereas the top note I would love to be a floral, a nice floral, to be that's what I would love it anytime. It's a very abstract question. It's like, certainly, like, I'm sure, like, many people would have answered your questions. Like, I would like to go to a place where, Hogwarts School, or something, like, that's a favorite. It strikes me immediately, because, like, my daughters, she used to go crazy on, those kind of fictional stories, and Harry Potter was the craziest thing. And but if you ask me personally, I'm not in those kind of era, but the most fictional part of it, I wouldn't say it's a fictional, but the based on my Sanatana Dharma, what we follow as the Hindus, we would love to, I would like to see the place is Vaikuntham. We call Vaikuntham is the heaven. I would love to go to heaven and see what's happening in the heavenly bodies, basically. And that's something which is, it's fictional maybe for many of the people who don't believe in this kind of a thing. But yes, it's not it's we have got in our own scriptures, like in Vedas and Upanishads, what we follows, like the Bible, what the Christianity follows, or the Quran, what the Muslims follow. We have our own spiritual books, and we all talk, and everybody talks in the spiritual books about the heaven, the heavenly bodies. And that could be fictional for somebody. For us, there's heaven exists, or there's a God exists. So that's something which I would love to explore. And that's the answer to your question. The fact is that we believe in karma theory. If you're going to do something wrong, the same wrong is going to hit you. Like, for example, if you're going to get if you're going to cheat somebody and get some money, for example, because you have cheated somebody and you have earned that money, and that money will never stay with you. That will get out of your hands some way or the other. That's a kind of a thing we believe. We believe that you do good, you get back good. You do bad, you're going to suffer bad things. So that's it's not a fiction. It's a fact. That's a fact of life. So we always so what I would like to preach, or what I would like to say as a fact, is that don't do anything wrong, don't do anything bad, because it's going to come back to you. So do good, always try it. Whatever you can do, help each other, but never try to harm anybody else. Basically, if I always just wanted to be, serving my country. Basically, I always wanted to be, if I would have dreamt, I would like to have a dream where I'm trying to do something good for the country, in terms of, protecting the country or serving the country in some form or the other. Maybe, working with the military or in the army, or whatever, those kind of a thing. That's one thing which I would love. The other thing is to work as a doctor and save people. When people are, in dire difficulties, and you as a doctor trying to save somebody, those are the things which I always love doing. So I wish any of those kind of dreams would be most welcome. I've been, like, if I'm just trying to think back, and if you ask me this question, what makes you laugh? Basically, I laugh onto jokes, and some of those small silly jokes, which, sometimes just kicks you off, and then you have a very hearty laugh, basically. So basically, it's all those what do you call as these small silly jokes, basically, uh, that makes me really happy. Like, it's sort of a thing when I really laugh on all those things, but I can't be very. I'm unable to explain, explicitly what those kind of situations are, etc., etc. The quality which I value with a friend or any of my friends is basically keeping in touch. That's number one, and number two is trying to ask, like, my well-being. Basically, that's the two most important qualities. But the other thing is the most important thing is for me is to be in touch with each other, not for any specific reasons, but just to say hello, hi, how are you. That's more than enough, because end of the day, at least there is somebody there to care for you. I always wanted a job which would allow me to travel around the globe, and I think I did achieve what I wished during my younger days. That's what I wished for, because the right from my younger days, I always wanted to see the whole world, and I thought that it was impossible as a family, or as from the where I grew up, that I would be able to afford going around the world. But I thought that the only way I could see the whole world is to get a job which would make me travel around the globe, and I did achieve my dream. India, where we all grew up, we never had to work in restaurants, or like, unlike in the other parts of the world where the during the student life, people had to fend themselves, because either you would go outside, for higher studies to other countries. I never had to go through all those things, because in India, when you are growing up, basically the concept is the parents used to take care of till you get married. You're still under the blessings of your parents, and they take care of all the expenses. So to be honest with you, that I never spent for my own education. Uh, I had double postgraduate, and every single penny of my studies were taken care of my parents, my dad especially. So I never had to spend anything for my education. Whereas I can see, like, my daughters, of course, they had taken loan for their studies, and they had to work in the colleges, and work anywhere to pay off the loans. But in my when I grew up, or when all those in my sort of contemporary who grew up in India at those point of time, nobody had to spend out of their pocket, because nobody had to work in any restaurants, or fend for themselves, because that was not the culture in India. Even now the culture is that the parents bear all the expenses till they are married off, actually. So my first job started after my education, and my first job was with Max Factor. very glamorous line, and I grew up from a management trainee after my education right into a marketing manager's position. Within 4 years of time, I could travel all over India. India is quite big, and even now people would not have gone from east to west or south to south because many of them can't afford. So, but I had the opportunity because of my job to go and visit most of the states as a part of my job. So that was great, like seeing so many places in India. And I grew to the position of marketing manager, which was quite creditable. And that also gave me an opportunity to stay in England for some time, get trained with Max Factor factory, learn the whole art of makeups. People don't believe that I'm a qualified makeup gentleman, and that was very interesting. So I learned the whole gamut of making lipsticks and nail varnishes, and making cream puffs and pancakes for the film industries. So that was a fabulous kind of experience which I gained. And after a successful career with Max Factor in India, I got an opportunity to move to Oman in the Middle East. The opportunity was to, they selected me for a position of general manager, of course, and my responsibility was to set up a factory to manufacture perfumes, cosmetics, and toiletries. So that was a challenging job because I was only 32 years old when I was given this responsibility, and the money was no issue. So I had the opportunity to travel to Europe and to China and many more places to buy machineries. I set up the factory in about 2 years' time, and then we were about 5 people when I first joined the company, and when I left after 17 years, we were almost 80 people in the company. Build the company from zero sales to almost about $100 million. And that was a fantastic career growth I had when I was in the Middle East for 17 years. That was great. Launched about 45 products in the market, exported to about 10 to 15 countries, the entire GCC, which is the Middle Eastern markets, to Africa, and then to Asian markets. And after that stint of 17 years in the Middle East, when my kids were growing up, there was no opportunity for studies there because either my daughters had to come back to India for studies, or I had to send them abroad to US or UK for studies. So we thought that we could stay as a family, and the only place we could migrate was either to Canada, New Zealand, or Australia. I had a lot of friends in New Zealand, so we picked up New Zealand as a place to stay. Got the opportunity to migrate to New Zealand, and very luckily, even before moving, I had targeted one company in Auckland who were manufacturing cosmetics and toiletries, and they were in the pharmaceutical business. And I wanted to get into that company, and believe me or not, I got into that company. Though it took me 6 months of unemployment when I first moved into New Zealand, finally I got into that company, and I worked there for almost 15 years. Built that portfolio of export business for them, and maybe must have bought about 10 to 15 new generic drugs into both Australia and New Zealand. And I worked with Australian pharmaceutical industries, which is and I was one of the part of the board members. So it was a fantastic career for me, having moved into New Zealand. And then finally we moved into Australia because my daughters wanted to get out of New Zealand because they felt that New Zealand is too small for their career. So we thought that, we will leave New Zealand, come to Melbourne, to Australia, because then we could stay as a family together. So moved into Australia, got a job in a food company, and which is great. I'm doing in the export business, and I'm enjoying my work so far. So that's been a small career growth. So I didn't have to struggle much in my life. God has been very kind to me, and I've been successful so far. So I'm quite happy with how the life has turned out to be. The current job is excellent because I was given the responsibility of doing the export business, and because of my pure contacts across the globe, because in my previous jobs I've been traveling and then I'm keeping contacts. And like what I told you in the beginning, that most of my relationships, relationships which I had built up with all my different buyers and customers, I used to still maintain. Like I never used to behave as, like a customer and buyer relationship, but then it was more like you built up the personal relationships and rapport, and that is helping me in this current business where I'm growing my business. I brought in many more countries into the gamut of exports. So that way I'm quite happy that, I'm able to, justify my position and, give returns to the company. I always wanted to be in the consumer business, the FMCG business, and all the pharmaceutical business. That was my personal interest basically. And I till I moved into Melbourne, I was always in that particular line of business. Uh, the only thing what I learned or what I could have done better in my professional life was when I was in the Middle East. It was I can be very honest and very frank here that I was given the position of general manager or the number one in the company at a very very young age of 32, and money was not an issue. I had enough money to spend, no questions asked, and that made me a little bit of an arrogant person. I did not know basically the way how you need to treat an employee, or how you have to do something so that besides growing the sales and making profit to the company, there was the other side of an element on the human touch or the human thing, which I lacked, which I didn't realize till I became much more matured. So even though I grew the business, I made huge profit for the company, but I was very bad with my relationship, how I maintained with my employees. I could have been much better, which is I'm talking on the hindsight. What I should have done, what I could have done, what I could have done to make people more happy, the employees more happy. The employees would have given I was too like a autocratic. I was too like a military commander. I thought that everyone has to salute me and answer everything to me. I was not delegating. So there was a lot of things which I learned on an hindsight, which if I go back, I would have been a different person in that position, and I would really know how to treat people, how to. So I learned a lot later on in my life that I became mature. That it's true that you can't become a general manager at the age of 30. It was wrong, because you have to grow. You got to gain that position, I believe that you need to have that kind of a maturity to handle so many people, and you just can't be holding that such a high position at the age of 30. Though it was like I was very proud that I became, and I had a lot of money coming in, but on the hindsight, I would have been a different person if I again go back 30 35 years. I do love the job because I think I'm doing quite well, and bringing more business and getting new customers. But what I hate is that I need more responsibility, because I never been working with so much less responsibility in all my previous jobs, because I had much more responsibility and much more authority and power, which I would love to have it. So because I feel that I have the potential to give back to the company. The one of the things which I can remember about the interesting thing is that when I was in the Middle East, we were given a job. I was given a responsibility to develop a fragrance for the Sultan of Oman, because the owners of my company was very close to Sultan, and he was a personal advisor to the Sultan Qaboos when I was there in Oman, Muscat, during my stint from 1987 to 2001. And it was quite challenging for me, because Sultan, he needs something very niche product, and to develop something which is niche out of the oud. Oud is something which is the traditional fragrance used by all the Arabs, and to get the right note of the fragrance on the oud, it's quite challenging. And I had to get from a place called Kannauj, which is a part of it in the eastern part of India. That's where it is grown. It's a particular kind of a wood, and to get that kind of, it's pretty expensive. It's cost of something like almost about $100,000 for about a kilo of that particular fragrance. The actual raw material. It's so expensive. So, but what we had is quite minimal, quite milligram, those kind of doses, but that will give you a fantastic note, and that's what Sultan would want it. Actually, Sultan wanted in about 100 bottles specifically made so that he can give a gift to the different delegates and different other ministers who come to meet him. So it was a challenging job, and then I'm so happy that we could crack it, and Sultan liked it. So, and it was such a beautiful bottle. We made it beautiful packaging because money was not an issue. So it was all decorated with gold filling, gold kind of a packaging, and that was something which is I can never forget, because I could never believe that I have been successful in that, because so it's very difficult to get convince Sultan, and it happened. So that's something which is I can remark. I can very well remember in my life. The other thing which I can remember is in my last stint with Australian pharmaceutical industry, when I won the first contract of the tender for the pharmaceutical business. So that was just fabulous. Oh my! Anything if you want to do, ask me to do with the accountings, I hate it, and especially doing the figure work in terms of the budgeting and sending reports. Uh, like I used to dread doing the balance sheets in my job when I was in the Middle East, because as a general manager, I was responsible for everything. So finally tallying the, checking up the figures and presenting it to the board, I used to hate, and I never used to enjoy. Speaking about the figures and presenting to the board, I used to hate those things. So I think that's one thing which I really don't enjoy, the figure works. The most important thing, I mean, like in my profession where I have been working especially in the pharmaceutical business and in the cosmetics business, the the actual cost of the product is nothing when it comes to, especially when it comes to fragrances or the skincare items or anything. The amount of margin or the amount of profit the company would have been getting it is tremendous. Whereas if you're buying a product which is worth say $10, the cost of the production is hardly less than $1 for any of those cosmetics or any of those products. So it's a huge amount of profit which is available in terms of when you buy a cosmetic or a skincare items, etc. And same thing goes with pharmaceuticals basically, and that's why the generic pharmaceuticals came into play, because the drugs which has been patented by different companies, they were actually fleecing the consumers basically. And even though the big multinationals do say that they spend a lot of money on R&D, and that's why they are charging so much, but I don't think it is warranted so much to charge so much. For example, the current COVID situation, Pfizer is charging so much for a vaccine, which is unbelievable. And in the last quarter, they made $900 million profit only on COVID, on vaccines. So this is something which is very difficult to digest. I can only think about one thing in my life which really moved me that was the first time is when I could bring my parents or take my parents to the Middle East, when I was working there, because probably that was the first time they ever climbed into an aircraft. So they spent for my education, they spent for everything, for my well-being till I could stand on my own feet. And when I moved into the Middle East, and I was, I had a kind of a luxurious life, and I wanted my parents to enjoy. So, and it was quite difficult to get visas, during those times, to get people to come and stay with you for, a couple of months. And I could take both my parents, for my mom and dad, to come to Oman and stay with us, and then give them all those luxuries, what I mean, enjoying, which they never had it during their lifetime. So this is something which I can never forget it, because uh, they always wanted to fly on fly in an aircraft. They could never afford in India when they were there. They all bringing up the family, etc., etc. It was not affordable for them, etc., in those times. I'm talking about 1950s. And I could do that for them. I could fly them to Oman, show them the luxuries, give them all those things. They had the gem of their time staying with us. So that's something which I can never forget. So that event is, I literally cried. I was thankful to the God that I'm able to do something back to my parents. To give them that pleasure of life, to give them that happiness. And to see their son doing well, etc., etc. So that's something which I cherish in my memory. My perfect day. Obviously, I mean, I would do a sunny morning with a good weather, and then I am a guy who gets up quite early, and then have a doing our own chores, and then we take a lot of time in praying. We are quite religious, so that's one thing which I enjoy doing in the morning, doing my prayers, and then starting the day off, and then do a little bit of exercise, and then go for a walk, and then spend time with my family. And that's what we've been doing, and that's what I still enjoy doing it. My luckiest thing, I would still believe, is my career breaks. Every time I felt that I'm not doing well, dang, sometimes something happens, and I used to get a job, something which, I mean, I've been getting. I mean, I thank God. I mean, like, every time I was in doldrums, or feeling bad about something happening, and something good comes around. So I feel the best thing happened to me was the getting the job in the Middle East, which changed my whole career and life. I could give good life to the whole my family. So I think that was a turning point in my life. That was the most luckiest thing. I mean, to get that job. Try helping each other. Whatever your might may be, whatever you can do, please do it to help the mankind. And that's what I would preach anybody. You do whatever you can go in whatever small way, because what we believe in is that everybody is not being made equal. Some people are very rich, some people are don't have, they're quite poor. But then if you can help, because we believe that God has given you more, so you're supposed to share with other people. So whatever is your might, you should be able to do it. You should do it. That's what I would be preaching everybody. My treasured memory is the happiness what I could see in my parents. I can still remember every time when I used to when I got this job, or when I was doing good, and that facial expressions of them. It's something which I can never forget. The earliest memory, I mean, like, which I can never forget, is that when we all grew up in India, it was like it's a lunchtime or dinner time. The entire family used to sit together and eat. Unlike these days, when you're not there, somebody is not there during the dinner time, but we always, wherever we are, at a dot of like 8 o'clock in the evening, you're all in the dinner table. Similarly, on a weekend, on a Sunday or a Saturday for lunchtime, everybody is together, and we all used to have lunch together, dinner together, have the evening tea together. That was something which is, I can still very distinctly remember as a family when we were growing up. That was still, it was all maintained. The one thing which I would have changed is join the armed forces of India. That's what I loved. I wanted to serve the country, and if I had not gone into this profession of current one, what I did, I would have been I would still love to be serving the country. The biggest regret of my life is we had wished, there are a lot of temples in India. There are a lot of religious places in India which I haven't visited, which I would love to visit. But unfortunately, since we moved out of India, the opportunity was much less. So my regret is that I should have, every time when I used to travel to India, I should have started visiting some of those places which I have missed. So I'm regretting because I don't know how good would be the opportunities coming again because of the current situations and the future situation, and you're growing old. So whether you'd have the opportunity to go and visit those places, which is still pending in my bucket list. So that's a bit regret, which I should have done it long time in my life. I would have told him that you could have been more disciplined in your life and not abused yourself, your body. That's the most important thing, because when you grow older, you realize that how much you abused your health, how much you abused your body, because when you become matured, you realize that it's a gift of God, that you got good limbs, good, everybody is not born equal. So your life is precious. You can't abuse your body. You can't abuse. You got to be more disciplined, which is what which I would tell going back. Just to answer the same question, I would have been more disciplined and taking care of the body and not abusing it. That's one thing which we are all, everybody does it. I mean, like I'm talking about the hindsight. We all have had getting pissed off, drinking, all those kind of things, that's the age. But then, when you start growing older or becoming more mature, you feel that you've been abusing your health so much, it's not warranted. You should know. I've done my own binge drinking, and everybody has gone through those kind of things, but it's not worth it in the long run. So I think that everything has to be done under certain limitations. So you got to enjoy your life. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But then everything has to have a limit of doing things. That's what I would like to preach. Yes, I mean, like I was a smoker till I stopped about 20 years back. But I was not a heavy smoker, but still I used to smoke about 2 or 3 cigarettes or 4 cigarettes a day, even during my college days and during my initial period of my career. But I think I should not have done that. I mean, like smoking is really bad. So I would have, on the hindsight, I think that was a very bad habit I had. Like what I explained to you earlier is that the kind of relationships or the kind of treatment meted out to the different employees when I was working, I would never do that in my life again, because I realized that every person is different and every person has got his own potential, and every person is different. So you need to empathize, you need to appreciate. I mean, these are the things which I've learned later on in my life, which having learned, I would never do that again. Oh, my mother, she was such a sweet lady. I mean, like undoubtedly, and it's the kind of patience. It's just unbelievable how they had to maintain and bring up the kids in those circumstances in 1950s in India. It's so difficult, like the salary earned by the guys are not so much, and the ladies don't go for work, so it's only one income, and then you got to manage 4 kids at home. We were 4 of us, and the way she managed it, something is just fabulous. If you think back, how people struggle these days, and the happiness, with whatever small they have, a small house or whatever, whatever they have to eat and drink, and that's it. I could never see them unhappy. They were happy with whatever they had, and I think it's something which is remarkable, which I don't find in these days, in the new generations. So, so this is something which we all have to learn, from this old generation, how those people survived, how those people built up the family, how they imbibed the knowledge, the kind of things, what they taught us, how you got to be living, etc., etc. If you think back, once we are now, I mean, like having grown up to this age, and you think back, whatever they have done has been just remarkable and fabulous. I just can't forget, what the amount of sacrifices they have done. He was another great gentleman, and he taught me a lot of things, personally, because he is a guy who always used to tell me, help people, help people, help whatever he can. I've seen him helping people. I've seen him, giving jobs to so many people, because when he was working, he was in a position where he could influence the company to employ a lot many more people. So something which he always believed in that, and that's what I imbibed from him, is that helping people and being nice to people, etc. That's what he taught me. And he was a workaholic, and he worked till he died. When he died at the age of 75, he was working till 73, I think. And he believed in that. And he believed that you got to respect people. That's one thing which I very distinctly remember. What my dad has taught me is that you got to respect people. You got to you can't be looking at people in a very cruel way. You got to be like empathize, going back to the same things. So he has taught me a lot many things, and the way he ran the family, it's something which I can look back and be proud of it. So very, very distinct remembrances of him, and then how, especially with treating of people, I can only remember one of my grandparents, because they were all staying in the village. So we used to visit once in a year when we used to go there. My grandfather was very, very strict, because he was a principal of a school. And oh my God, looking back, this is in 1956, 60s. People used to get scared of him, and he was a strict disciplinarian. And I can still, because in those days the principal carried a lot of a school carried a lot of weightage and respect and those kind of things. And the only thing I can remember, I met him when I was 4-5 years old. What is strict nature? That's what I can remember. Yeah, like I told you before, that I had 3 siblings. I got my elder brother, elder sister, and younger sister. My elder brother just passed away in an accident about 2 years back. He was as gem of a person as my brother, and everybody loved him. And in fact, I was a rebel, and he was the most sweetest person in the family. And it was sad that he passed away 2 years back, and he has been very helpful for me. If there's any issues, I used to talk to him, and then he used to give me his brotherly advice, and we had a very good relationship between all of us. My elder sister, she's also good. I mean, because we're all in a very close knit family. We are still in touch with each other every week. We talk to each other every week. So it's been very, very nice sort of a thing. And my younger sister, of course, she had a tough life after marriage. She also lost her husband because of cancer, and she's got a disabled sort of a child. So she's going through a tough life. But then end of the day, she's also happy in the sense that we all accept that it is destiny, and we got to believe in that whatever has happened. But as a close-knit family, we are very close to each other, and also with my in-laws' families and my family, everybody. So we've got a very good relationship amongst ourselves. Childhood was amazing. We still thanks to WhatsApp, we still all the childhood friends. We grew up in an apartment. Like in India, you don't have a separate houses. It's all big apartments, etc. So we were about 20 of us kids growing up together, going to the same school, and playing in the evening, and then those that was great. We were about 20 people all growing up together, and the best part of is that all these 20 people are in different parts of the world now, and everyone has been absolutely successful in their lives. That's something which is remarkable, and we still are in touch, which is the we had a I mean like we had a lovely life. The childhood life was very great. There was no television, there was no mobile phones at those times, there was nothing. So it was like it's purely playing in the building downstairs, and then coming up, having a family time with nobody watching television because there was no televisions. And so it was more of a close knit. The whole we grew up in such a way that there are about 20 flats in the building, and everybody knew each other. So it was like one single family, and that was the kind of a life we had during the childhood. And then growing up to the college, we made new friends when you go to the college, and then it was a different life. So where you meet different kinds of people, the rich, the poor, etc. So then you start comparing. But till you are in the school life, everybody is the same. You don't know whether there is a rich guy or a poor guy, or you never know when you are in a school, because you don't. That is not important. You don't talk about all those things. But once you enter the college, it becomes a different kind of a ball game. So that's what childhood was great. It's a fantastic memories, and it was lovely. Basically, I think we were raised in a perfect way of what the culture at that time was prevalent, because being from India, most of them are very religious. We are God fearing, and there's a certain kind of life to be followed. The Hinduism is a lifestyle. It's not a religion. Hindu is a lifestyle. How you follow your life system, the pathways, etc. So that's what was being taught to all of us, and we are still following the same kind of a pathway. I don't regret anything what the way I've been brought up by my parents, and I still feel that obviously I need to compare those generation vis-a-vis how they have brought me up. But if you compare to the current kind of a generation, the current kind of a lifestyle, obviously you might find a lot of faults in the way I've been brought up. Because during those times, like I'm talking about my childhood, I used to get spanked. Not doing anything, or if you're doing something wrong, you get spanked. But in this current generation, you can't even touch your kids. Correct? So it's a different kind of a scenario. Those times, that's all accepted. Correct? Like I've got beatings from my dad and mom, but that's okay. But that's how they have been. That's a kind of a sort of a culture prevalent at those times, but not this time. Even now in India, nobody even touches their kids, even if they do something wrong. But those days, that was the way it was. So I can't pinpoint, that they were wrong. Like current generation, no. Like my daughter doesn't even touch, my granddaughter. Because that's the way it has been. The current generation is. You're not supposed to, punish your children. You got to, reason out if they've done something wrong, or tell them, etc., etc. That's a new generation. So if I think back, I don't think that I can find fault. Yes, there are. If you compare with the current generation, whatever they have done is all wrong. So I wouldn't like to comment on that thing. Whether they were wrong or anything, etc., etc. How they were brought up. The best thing is that we all follow what our parents have taught us, all myself and my siblings, and because so there is a gel, the thought process are the same. The belief system is the same. So there's no conflict. See, the conflict arises if there is a belief system changes. So because we all grew up together, we all stayed in the same roof. The same thing is followed by my brother's family or my sister's family, etc., etc. And so there's a kind of a cohesiveness. So that's great in a family. You can pick up the phone and talk to them what is happening. They will understand. What is the situation. So it's love. It's a love shared between everybody. So that's something which is good. The saddest memory within the family was when we all knew that my dad has got cancer and that he wouldn't live for more than 6 months. That's when a doctor told us, and it was pretty tough to tell my mom, and because I was the person who took my dad to the doctor, and the doctor told me that he's in the last stages and he wouldn't survive for more than 6 more months. And that was the time when I was in the Middle East. So when I'd come down to Bombay and then took him to the hospital, and that was something which is the most saddest moment, because I knew that he's going to be away in the next 6 months, and we didn't tell him. We had to keep it secret from out of him. Uh, because he was such an active person, and he was sinking. For an active person to remain in the bed and not do anything, sleeping the whole day, which is not very unlike that. That was very, very sad for all of us. Like seeing dad thing. So the entire family, we were going through for 6 months. It was such a challenging thing. It's, to be honest, the only thing what remains after the families are gone is the photographs. It may sound absurd, but the rest of the things, in the current generations, when people are in different places, different things, the amount of, the time which you would give to each one in the family, also everyone is growing old. The only thing which links each other is keeping the photographs. I think that's the precious asset which everyone holds it till each one, dies off or, go get out of this world. The only thing which remains is the photographs. The discipline. The discipline is to always, my dad mom used to say, both of them, in fact, get up early, go to bed early, do your things, have a disciplined way of life. That's the only thing which will keep you growing. And the moment you lose your discipline, you lose everything. And then always be self-confident. And the other thing which I still remember what my dad said to me, which I always very much remember, is he says that don't ever feel bad about yourself. You're always a rich man. You will always remain a rich man as long as you don't beg and borrow. So as long as you don't beg and borrow, you are the most richest man in the world. So be like that. Keep your head high. These are something which are the preachings of my parents, which I still remember. And I try to follow the same thing. Oh, school, the way we had schools in India was totally different in those days. Like we studied in a co-educational school where we had boys and girls, but the boys never used to speak to the girls never used to speak to the boys. It was such a kind of a lifestyle, and I was a good student, so I had some extra privileges from the schools because the good students are always taken care of and all those things. So it was a very disciplined. We had a very strict principal, and it was a good life in the school. We had good friends, good people, and it was a different. We had not much of extracurricular activities like what you see in today's culture. Like every child, right from first standard or second, they have to go for sports. They have to do this. They have to know swimming. We never had all those kind of things because it was not affordable. Number one. and it was not those prevalent in those times, So, but overall, I think I had a very, very good life in the school. Nothing to regret. The terrible memory which keeps haunting me is it happened in the Middle East, where one of a distributor put a case against me with the police when I had not done anything wrong. So he fabricated the whole thing, and then it was a tough thing to get out of the whole muddle because he had more influence with the cops. So it took some time, that was terrible. I can't forget that, I went through some kind of a very tough 3 months. The one thing which I should have changed myself is getting back to taking care of my health more sincerely, right in the early days of my life. Though I was a sportsman, I used to run, jog 4 to 5 kilometers till the age of 50, till I moved into New Zealand. I used to very regularly, but then it tapered off. And yes, it's more discipline on your physical body because you got to take care of your health. And the other thing is probably to learn more stuff, other than your school books or the college books education. It's always you need to learn more. You need to learn whatever you can in your lifetime because learning never stops. Learning stops only when you die. Otherwise, you can learn anything. Anything which your hobby or anything which you like. Whether it's on music or whether it's on whatever you like, your personal interest. You should keep on reading. You should keep on knowing about it. Oh, not really on the physical or the mental health. Mental, of course, definitely no, because we have been following all those yogas and breathing techniques, and we do everything, all those kind of things. So there's no mental issues, etc. Physical issues is only being obese or slightly fat, which I hate it, which I should have taken care of, much earlier in my life, which tapered off. So that is something which I regret. I should have been, maintaining my body weight and the physical part of it. The hardest lesson, I would put it this way, is that whatever you can do it for you with you, whatever you can do yourself, do it. Don't depend upon others, because in every mode of life, if you're dependent on somebody, it's going to give you sometimes hurt feelings. So if you can do something yourself, you can take it up yourself, do it yourself, rather than depending upon others to get your things done. So I think that's what, dependence on others should be avoided. As I grow older, the only thing which I'm getting scared of maintaining my discipline in life, because a time might come that you might not be able to, get up early, do your prayers, do things on time, because your body may not be as quick enough or as fragile enough to do things like what you've been doing. So that's what I'm a bit scared, because you may not be able to lead those perfect disciplined life which you always believed in doing it. So that's the only scary part of it. It's something very funny. This happened in the Middle East. This has happened actually before my marriage. Actually, when I first went to Middle East in 1987, I wasn't married. I got married in 1989. So the first 1.5 years, I was having a bachelor life, and I had a lot of friends out there. So every weekend, the usual drinking session starts. So one of the nights, we had our usual drinking session, and both of us had probably finished a bottle of whiskey or something. Must be around midnight or something. I had an excruciating pain in my, below my stomach. Couldn't figure out what. And then it's difficult. If you're caught, you're jailed. You're both of both of us were drunk. We can't even drive to go to the hospital. But my friend who was staying with me, he took the risk. He said, let's rush to the hospital. And then we had nothing in the house. I mean, like bachelors, youngsters, So we had empty whiskey bottle, and he was putting hot water and trying to roll it on my stomach. We didn't even have hot water bags, soothing thing, and that was the most funniest thing. And he will still laugh, talking about this joke. It was not a joke, it was a pain, I couldn't bear it, the pain. And somehow we went to the hospital in the midnight emergency, and the doctor immediately x-rayed, and they said it was a stone. It was stone, in the kidney. And that was giving me so much pain. And they gave me, I must have taken 2-3 shots of pethidine that particular night. I couldn't take the pain. That was something which I can never forget it. And the next day morning, when they re-examined, etc., and when I was going to piss, I could feel the stone coming down. Oh my God, it was such a pain. And then that's something which I can never forget. It was such a, the pain was so much that nobody should go through this. And the best part was doctor advising you should drink a lot of beer. This happened sometime during 1970s when I was in London in one of those underground tube stations. I was going back to the hotel, and it was quite late. It was almost about 11 in the night. I'd gone to meet somebody, had a dinner, and then I was coming back to my hotel, and I still remember it was on Victoria Station there, and there was nobody on the underground tube station, and there were two girls, standing in, this, if London, there's a lot of, you got to climb a lot of steps, and you got to walk quite a bit of things and to get on the upstairs. And these girls were, when they saw me coming, I just passed them, and they were making some remarks, and then they started, chasing me. I just ran off, and they were trying to mug me, actually. And I got so much scared. I just ran for my life. And somehow, I could climb the stairs and, come to the main road. At least there would be some people out there. And these girls started chasing me, And then somehow there was another gentleman who was walking on the street, he saw me. And then he said, what's wrong with you? I said, I couldn't even speak at that time. I was so scared. That was the most scary point, that these two girls trying to, mug me, We are very religious people. We believe in God. We definitely believe in the existence of a superpower, whether you might call it God or anybody, but for us, we call it God. We have, like in our religion, we have got so many gods, unlike in Muslim, you believe in Allah, one Muhammad, the Prophet. In Bible, we believe in Jesus Christ, one. But in the case of Hinduism, there are so many different gods, gods and goddesses. It's very difficult for anybody to, conceptualize the whole thing, because in our religion, what we believe is actually, like I said, Hinduism is not a religion. Hinduism is a way of life. If you follow a certain way of life, then you become a Hinduism. And there's nothing, Hinduism, we believe in scriptures, a lot of books written, Vedanta, Upanishads, the different things are, written, and it gives you the way of life, Bhagavad Gita, probably you must have heard Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna tells Arjuna in the Mahabharata war, what has to be done. And we tend to believe all those things because if you go back to India, if you see the ruins, there are still ruins which is 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, etc., etc. So we follow certain things and we believe in God because we there's so many instances which has proven to us that the God exists basically. So my views, or right from our childhood, what we have been taught is that there is a God existing. You need to pray to the God, and then that's how the life, purely because of religion and as per our religion or the Hinduism, the way we follow life and this thing, we are not supposed to touch the meat or the non-vegetarian. So I got into a habit of eating it because of my travels, because traveling different parts of the world across the globe, there was a time where it was difficult to get pure veg. For example, especially in China in those days, so difficult. So I got into eating those things. But later on in my life, I started learning the scripts of Hinduism and got involved more into the religious activities, going to the temples and actually performing a lot of the pujas, what we call. So I stopped. I said this is against the religion and against all those things. So I just stopped one day. Every body or any human being consists of a soul and a body. Your body is made up of five elements. Earth, water, air. These are the five elements your body is made up of. Because when you die, when you're buried or that you're cremated, it's going back to the nature. Correct. But your soul doesn't die. The moment you die, the soul escapes, and gets into the life of somewhere else, And we particularly believe that, you come to this life, it's on a purpose, and every life you take, you actually meet your previous people. But what happens is that till you're in the mother's womb for the 9 months, you still remember your old life. But we believe that God has, created this human life or human physical body. The moment you comes out on your birth, you forget everything. You start your new life, but the soul's quality would be exactly like what you have experienced in your previous life, how you have been, how good you are, how bad you have been, etc., etc. So the same, in the new birth, it's like a tape recorder, it gets into that. The same thing, what we call as sanskaras, that's a Sanskrit word. So your way of behavior has been similar to, or you're born with certain traits similar to your previous birth. You have been like that only. If you're kind, you're soft spoken, it's the same thing which comes in. If you're harsh, if you're a culprit, or if your mentality is to hurt people, kill people, you're going to follow the same thing. You're born like that again and again and again, in your life, So that's what we believe, so we believe that you got to be doing good things, so that even if you have to rebirth, you're born in a good family, you have a good life, you still, follow the same things, it's automatically imbibed in your character. That's why you find that some child who is born by the age of 5, you'll find that it's become very aggressive. Some child is very docile. Some child is, different. Every child is different. You can make out. It is all the sanskaras, the previous birth, they have come in this thing. So that's what we believe in, So we believe that you do good things so that, you are, born, if you have to rebirth. Technically, what we believe is that we don't want rebirth, which we call as the mukti. That means you don't want to come back into this life and suffer again and suffer again. Because life is a suffering, end of the day, technically. Correct? Everybody has to, you go through a lot of issues, a lot of problems, a lot of things. Everybody is not born with every time with a silver spoon or, everybody has got their different problems. You have got your problem. Everyone has got their own personal problems. So we don't want rebirth, technically. So that's what we pray to the God. We don't want rebirth. But if you're what we believe, that you're forced to born again because you have got your karmas, you have done bad things, so you have to repay it in your next birth. That's what is the concept. I'm talking a sort of very precise summary. Quite a bit in a lot of instances. I mean, like in the sense that obviously, because of your color and where you're coming from, basically, there have been instances, but that has not really affected my career because I was always self-confident. You got to be very, 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 very. You should at least know for sure the kind of place where you are going in, and the kind of hotel where you are staying in. That's very important because wherever you go, you need to know the place before you go. Without just having with no idea, you just can't go to a new place. It's quite difficult. So before I go, I always have some knowledge of the place where I'm going. Otherwise, it could be real issue. The the best advice what I can give, which I given to I used to still tell my daughters, every child is different. Stop comparing your child with other child. Every child has come with a certain purpose, and every child has got its own gifted, qualities and abilities. Because one person is different from the other person, so don't push too much on the child. The child, if child will evolve itself to, if there's a boy or a girl, if he's going to become a great sportsman, he will become a great sportsman. You don't expect him to study, have triple degrees and double degree qualifications, etc. He may be excelling in sports. He may not love studies, or he or she, that's what we wanted to advise, because coming from the Asian or from the Indian subcontinent, basically the Chinese people also, they push the children to study, But that's not the right thing. Everybody is smart. Everybody will grow up. So, you got to be very kind and, find out the exact potential each child has got. So, that's the kind of advice I would give to any new parents. Oh, treasured memories, the day I became a grandfather, holding my granddaughter in my hand. That was a lovely feeling. If you want in a broader sense, my answer would be to love mankind, love each other, stop wars, because your life is precious. Do good things, reap good things. Basically, people might come across me as quite a harsh or arrogant person, but honestly, I'm not that kind of a person. I'm the person who would love to help others. I want people to be remembered as a very nice person who believed in helping each other, not harming anybody, and who was quite, disciplined in his life, and believed in the Hindu Dharma. Yeah, I think you should do it because besides the photography, which according to me is the only asset left behind by the older generation, this could be, along with the photograph, this could be a video recordings, so which the new generations or the yet to come generations, people could at least listen and understand and hear the voice of those older people who would have gone away. Well, it's pretty good, Daniel. I mean, like what you're doing, it's a good concept. And like what I told you, that it could be the Bible for each of their own families, So, which the generation which is yet to come would learn how the earlier generations were, how they had built up the family, how close knit they were, etc. So everything could be learned, and that could be a sort of a trail which the new generations could follow.